Hello, my name is Charles, and in today's video, I want to talk about trusting life. So, I think a lot of people, um, it seems to be pretty apparent in today's time that maybe there's people talk about like a mental health pandemic, or that people are struggling with their mental health and their kind of spiritual well-being, and they're like, what do I do? How do I feel good when interacting with people, when by myself, calm, composed? How do I love better, love other people better? How do I take, joy in their successes and stay in equanimity, in difficult situations? And I think a lot of the time there's a lot of philosophy, and there's a lot of psychology and neuroscience and even spirituality and faith that can be involved in kind of sorting out that answer. But I think what's helpful for a lot of people is simplicity. And so to give you a simple way that'll end up manifesting in kind of a beautiful way of experiencing life. A simple way to kind of experience well-being, right? Your innate sense of well-being is to trust life. Is to in other words, trust God, but trust life. So, because a lot of the times, right, we feel, let's say the world is crumbling, right? We see what's going on with India. We see what's going on with, Russia and Ukraine. We see what's going on with, we see with BlackRock buying tons of properties, and we're like, man, houses are skyrocketing, and I want to move out of my parents' house. And, the down payment of everything I'm around is like, 100 to 200K. Like, what am I going to do when I'm about to graduate? A lot of people could be having fears with the world and, what they think is uproar. And it's just in trusting life, or even personally, right? You're in a conversation with someone you really, your devoted partner, or, their parents, and you're like, what do I say? What do I do? And I think just trusting in life, or trusting in God, recognizing that you don't have to bear the burden of infinite responsibility for all the, best possible things to say, or, magic words or actions you're going to take that are going to solve the housing crisis and get you rich, right? All you have to do is put in your best effort and your best intention for your well-being and the well-being of everyone around you. And then just leave the results up to the universe and up to God. And so you in trust in the natural unfolding, right? So let's say you're in that conversation with the person you're devoted to, and you're like, oh, what's the right thing to say? As long as you have that intention, right? Just trust that God, or if you're not religious, life is going to put the right thoughts or the right, attitudes, mindsets, ideas, emotions in your experience. And and you can learn on the go, you can grow. And it's just recognizing that, right? When you wake up in the morning, let's give this clear example. When you wake up in the morning, and your brain goes, what time is it? Checking for work, or so you're meeting someone, like you didn't have to make that thought appear. You didn't have to force it in there and take responsibility to make all the neurons fire. It's like, God, or if you're atheist, like life orchestrated this. So you're designed to be able to plan out activities, to be able to, socialize with others and converse, create well-being, right? all the things we want to do, a lot of the times we're designed to be able to do it. Working out, for example, it's like we have the systems to be able to do it. And so it's just kind of trusting that if your atheist life or of faith, God has orchestrated it in a way for the greatest unfolding of love. So right, when you're engaging in a conversation, you pay attention to the best of your ability, but naturally you don't force your attention or like try to control everything they're going to say or their reactions. You just allow it to naturally unfold. You listen to them, your mind naturally pays attention. When the response is needed, your brain's going to put an idea or a thought or an image or a feeling or something to say, or, a funny gesture, like, right. And as long as you're willing to learn and your intention is for the well-being of the person you're devoted to, or, the well-being of yourself and everyone around you, then naturally things are going to go well. Naturally, your direction is right. And, the circumstances, the situation will naturally lead to that. Like, for example, if you were to get anxious, about like, oh my gosh, is my heart beating irregular? Like, you don't have to control beating your heart. Fortunately, God just set that up so the heart just beats itself. It just takes care of itself. And then same with, storing memories. Let's say you have a really good, memory with your partner. You just naturally remember it because it was so wonderful and so meaningful. Your brain just goes, boop, I remember, And so trusting that, it's set up in such a way where it'll just work out wonderfully. And I know for a lot of people that's like, what? Like, how do you do that? And it's recognizing that in the first place, you weren't controlling like 99% of things anyways, Like when you're hearing me talk, listen to this, right? Listening to this YouTube video, you're not, you're hearing the words and maybe you're thinking about them in some ways, but you don't even have to try to, understand the grammar and the language. Or if you know English and you're listening to this, your brain just processes it naturally. You don't even have to, you can't not hear something if you try, right? If something's just in your vicinity, you just hear it, there's so many things that are just taken care of, right? When we're sleeping, most people think like, oh, I'm good at sleeping or I'm bad at sleeping, right? Or like, I have insomnia. It's like, in some sense, you don't even sleep. You just set up the circumstances for sleep, and then naturally your body and your brain just do it, right? Like you just lay in the bed and you just calm down, slowly, gradually unwind, and then all of a sudden, where'd you go? And then 8 hours, 7, 8 hours later, you're like, I'm awake, right? So it's like you don't even. Most of what you do, you don't even know how you do it. So what do you mean, like, like you're worried or anxious about, like, just trust that the natural unfolding is so, so wonderful, and it is set up for the highest love in your life, right? Like, let's do the last example will be like when you eat food. Do you even know how right? Even if you tried, you really willed yourself, like, I'm going to digest this food. Like, you don't even know how you're digesting food. You're not managing any of those chemical reactions. It just beautifully happens. Food just lovely digests and it takes care of itself and it feeds the body, right? So just trust that life is oriented in such a way as to work optimally. Like it's working. Just trust that God, or if you're an atheist or, agnostic, that life or the universe has set it up in such a beautiful way that life takes care of life and that, it's set up for ultimate love. And if you can have that understanding, there will be so much peace of mind, so much equanimity. Naturally, things get better and better. I assure you. And so just enjoy. Take it easy in life. Much love to you all, and God bless.